Vicki Abelson. Hi, Marsha. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am thrilled. I have been a fan for a long time. I love Night Court and Empty Nest, but it's really your stand-up that you balls to the walls. And so I've been trying to find out how that started. I know you're from Chicago,
Right?
but I don't know. There weren't Black women doing stand-up that I can recall when you came up. I think you're a pioneer. Well, you were.
Well, Mom's Magley had been doing stand-up for a while, but she was near the end of her career when I started. Charlie Hemphill was doing stand-up when I got to Los Angeles, but she didn't do it as much after she got on What's Happening.
Right.
So, yeah, I was one of the few. Whoopi came along that I knew of a couple of years later. So when I started, there was a woman named Brenda Verrett and another woman, I can't think of, Roberta or something. And that was it.
I'm sure I came from that world, but didn't work out well for me. I had to go other ways. But how did you cobble your act together? Did you study? How did you cobble your act together when you started?
Sometimes for me, things come together that have been percolating forever for my whole life. I was always the kid who wanted to see the comedians on the variety shows, who wanted to go see the funny movies. At 5 years old, was taking joke books out the library. I was always reading the joke section in the newspaper. So when it came time to try to put together an act, I had no idea how you do it. So I did it like I thought it should be done. And so I've been making this up as I go along since day one.
So did you organically know how to do setup punchline? I mean, you're more a storyteller than a setup punchline, but you do have you do tell jokes.
Yeah. The first joke I wrote on the spot was the first night I went on stage. People don't understand that there were no comedy clubs at that time.
Right.
Comedy Store had just opened in like 72. They just had their 50th year anniversary. But nobody knew anything about it. It wasn't a thing. The Improv had been open, but they had been doing music and, poetry and stuff. And they had, but the concept of a comedy club was brand new. And so Tom Dreesen had a Monday night, which was a brand new concept, at a club. It was a deli called the Pickle Barrel in Chicago. And there was a feature in the paper about it. And I happened to see it. And I told a friend I was going to go down. I never went. So one day, on one Monday, she came to my house, said, "Get up, put your clothes on, we're going." "You've been talking about this long enough, you're going." I don't have any. She, "Get up, you're going." And she got up, got me up, put me in the car, took me down to the club, introduced herself to Tom.
Yeah.
Dreesen.
I love Tom Dreesen.
He's still a friend. I saw him at the Comedy Store reunion. Was a big influence on me as a young comedian. But she introduced me to Tom, said she wants to go on. Tom said, "Okay, we got a virgin." And he had mentioned in the article that all the new comics were virgins and blah, blah, blah. So 5 hours later, 2:00 in the morning, virgin time. And I went on stage and said, "Hi, my name is Marsha Warfield, and I'm a virgin, so please be kind." That was the first joke I wrote on the spot. It was pretty lame, but it worked. And from that point, I was hooked.
And so did you start to write, or did you just go up and go for it?
The second time I went on, I did "Hey, I did this the first time, I can do this again" thing, and, suck hairy weenie. And so I learned you got to have some idea what you're going to say. And by that time, I had met comedians like Tom and Brad Sanders and Manuel Arrington and the comedians that were around, Judy Tenuta. And there were, a lot of us, we were all babies.
Right.
and Bill Miller. And so we would get together and learn and teach each other and try to pick the brains of the older comics who were around and learn how to discard the material and help that the older comedians gave us that was no use to us because they were coming from another era.
Right.
And the supper club era, where you aspired to be an opening act, the Jerry Lewis and
Dean Martin,
Dean Martin were an opening act for, the Sinatras and whatnot. And I mean, that was what the comedians did. Even when you worked the Playboy clubs and stuff like that, you opened for somebody. And that was the era we were coming off of into this wild, wild west of comedy clubs, soon to become franchises, soon to become an entire industry that didn't exist at the time.
How did you make money back? I mean, I remember in New York, it was $5 a set. How were you living? How were you surviving at the beginning?
As soon as I got to town, I got a job as a switchboard operator for an answering service. Remember?
Oh,
we
yes.
We didn't have even machines that, answering machines. We had
right.
If your phone rang, you weren't home, just rang. That was it. Unless you had an answering service that would come and lay, like your cable installer, and hook your phone up so that I could answer it for you and say, "Hi, Vicki's house," or whatever you wanted.
I actually worked a switchboard in the Catskill Mountains. My father was a master of ceremonies. Did you ever do the Catskills?
No, I didn't do the Catskills, but I was a switchboard operator for the Illinois Bell for 4 or 5 years.
So, okay, so you had a job. Was being a comedian something that you thought about when you were like, I know the variety shows were the thing and we grew up watching them, and I'm sure you watched Ed Sullivan like we all did. Did you decide, okay, that's what I want to do, or did you just fall into it?
I had no clue that regular people could be magic people. I thought the people on TV and stuff were magic people. They weren't normal people. And so I did not know of a connection between normal people and show business. It was not a part of my life. I was, what I knew about show business was watching TV, going to the movies, going to a concert. Maybe I had no idea how to do that. And that's why when I saw the feature in the paper about Tom Dreesen's Monday Night, well, I can try that, but it was a huge try. It was a huge thing. It wasn't something that was, and it's hard to explain. Coming up as I did, at the time I did, being a Black girl coming up, they didn't expose us to a lot of things as opportunities.
I bet.
We didn't get those. The opportunities we had were you could apply for Ford, Chevy, Spiegel's, post office, get a job.
Is that what your mother wanted you to do? That's
what everybody was supposed to do. Grow up, graduate high school, get a job. College was not a big reality until the early 70s. For young Black kids, maybe junior college, but it wasn't until after the Civil Rights Acts and the passed in the 68 and stuff that started to open up and colleges began to recruit and more people started going. And so we didn't know jobs existed. We didn't know you could be a cable puller or anything. We had no clue about that. And so, no, I didn't dream about being on stage, but the night I went on stage for the first time, I felt as if I had been called to the clergy. I mean, it was the skies opened up and, you know, sunshine rained down, and I found myself to the angels choir. Oh, it was all of that. It was all of that.
Did you face, I imagine you had to face resistance. I mean, I came in the mid 80s, and just being a woman, that even then it was still a weird thing. Did you, as a Black woman, did you ever have audiences that were resistant because of who you were, what you looked like, or was that not your experience?
It was to a degree, but it was to be expected, you know, that you were talking to people who had never talked to me. I was the only Black person in town for years. That's how I made a living. I would be the only Black person, and to the point that people would see me and honk and wave, and I wasn't famous. They would, and I'm, hi, why are you waving at me? And you're the Black girl. They knew there was a Black girl in town. And so they weren't really hostile, but there was that reality, and there were, you know, times when I'd say things and get and be like, okay, you know, down, Clem. But well, on the whole, most of the time it was okay. It would be after the show when you'd run into, you know, somebody, and I ain't never seen a Black girl before.
Yeah.
I like that.
So you were putting your act together. How long did did you get like your five, like you had your 5 that you could do, or were you able to just go from the start?
Well, I had a different kind of experience starting in Chicago, and where you had to find your own rooms, you had to find your own way. And one of my first gigs was as a opening host and MC for a jazz in a jazz club.
Oh,
18-piece band, and I got to be the house comic. So you had to have 1 minute, 2 minute hunks in between acts. You know, there might be who knew how many acts per show. So I had to get comfortable doing that, and, you know, emceeing and opening the show, that kind of stuff. So I learned how to put that together. And then I would, you know, get my opening 10 minutes or whatever to do. So I started putting stuff together like that. Then when I went to Los Angeles, everybody had this idea that there was a comedy club to success pipeline that went directly from the Comedy Store to the Tonight Show to a sitcom. And I
although you pretty much did that though.
It took years. But
how long did it take?
I started doing stand-up in 1974. I got Night Court in 1986. So
yeah,
you know, there are a lot of steps along the way. You know, there are a lot of big breaks. People think about big break. You never know what your big break is. It's just another gig. You know, there were a lot of big breaks along that way. You know, I got to do a lot of things that even when I got Night Court, I was of the mindset that, you know, this could all go away tomorrow and I'd be fine because I still have stand-up, and there'll be more, you know, bumps to the career. So, and I always consider myself a stand-up first. You know, I didn't get in it to be an actress. I got in it to do stand-up.
Had you studied acting at any time? No, you just.
When I got Night Court, I felt woefully unprepared. So I told my agent I needed to study something so I'd know I don't know where to stand, where to go, what the cameras are. I don't know anything. And so I said, I need a class to teach me something. He got me signed up with a class called Acting for the Camera. I go to the class, they had me do a little scene. They said, you have a natural comedy bent. And no, really, thanks. I didn't know that. So then they said, get this book, read the first chapter and the preface, and then come back and we'll do more scenes. So I got the book, I opened it up, and the first line was, the secret to comedy is to keep it simple.
Mm.
So I closed the book, put it down, never went back to the class.
Oh, I can do that, huh?
If you say keep it simple, why am I reading more? If there's 280 pages of keep it simple, that's stupid. So I said, I'm going to take your advice. We'll keep it real simple.
Okay, well, that's so. But you were doing TV before Night Court because you did variety. You did the Richard Pryor Show, right? How did you get that? How did that? Before that, did you do Alan King? Did you do something with Alan King?
Yes, I did the Jim Nabors show. I did the Mac Davis show. I did the Alan King show, where I was an extra with a line or something. I was so nervous. I had no idea what I was doing, but I got through it somehow. And
did you have an agent? How did you segue from the clubs to television?
I don't know that it was. I was in LA, and those things, so you hear about something, you go, they got an open audition, you got this, that. Somebody saw you at the Comedy Store Improv, said, we need somebody to do this. That's how I got gigs. I didn't get an agent until 79. No, I did get an agent before that. I got an agent after the Richard Pryor Show. I got booked on a special called That Thing on ABC. In 1978, 77, 70, early. And it was a pilot. It was for a comedy variety show. Shelley Long was on the show.
Oh, wow.
Mandy Patinkin was on the show. But they weren't the stars of the show. The star was comedian Denny something. I can't think of his last name. But he had a kind of John Ritter thing going on. And he was the star of the show. And so I got cast on that. So I called ICM and I said, I have a job on a TV show and I don't have an agent.
You had one now.
They said, you have they're going to offer. No, I said, they have offered me the job. I have the job. I don't have an agent. I would like an agent. And they said, hold on. And they connected me with an agent. And that's how I got my first agent.
Wow.
Then I won the San Francisco stand-up comedy competition. And that year they had, that was 79. And the next few months, I think we were into 80 by then. They had a national competition. And I won that too. And that's when I met my next agent, Fred Amzell.
And so the Richard Pryor Show, you didn't have an agent, because you were recurring on that. How did you negotiate that deal? How did you do that?
Nobody negotiated that deal. That was Paul Mooney. Paul Mooney was at the Comedy Store. And when Richard had been to the store a lot, when he would be working out an album, he'd come in like on Monday or Tuesday with some notes. And by Friday, he would have an album. And so we would just sit there and watch him. And then when he said that he had got the NBC show, they had sketches and Paul was working with him. And he said, you guys can do that stuff. You want to come down and do blah, blah, blah. And yeah. So they were small parts at first that he would cast from the people that we knew at the Comedy Store. Tim Reed, John Witherspoon, Robin Williams, Argus Hamilton, just a bunch of us from the store. So we did the first show, not the pilot, the first show of the season. And then Paul and Richard decided that this core group could be the ensemble. And so they kept calling us every week. And that's how most of us got our union cards.
Wow.
This job dropped out of the sky for all of us.
Did your life start to change then?
No. I mean, I got the pilot.
You were making more money.
I was making some money, but it was this month, 2, 3, 4 months, another gig, 2, 3, 4 months, another. I mean, there was not much of a circuit. The Laugh Stop, when I started working there, was, I think, around the same time I got the pilot, that thing on ABC.
Right.
Which was early 78. And then I started headlining there, and I could work there every couple of months, every 2, 3 months. And then the Ice House
In
Pasadena.
down, right. Mm-hmm.
And they would book me as a middle act. But the Laugh Stop is where I put my energy into, because they let me headline. They were the only club. I was one of the few women headlining at that time. And so from there, and then the comedy club started picking up more and more after I won the competition and all that kind of stuff. I got more opportunities to headline other clubs. And that's pretty much what I did.
So
and in between, I would get other kinds of gigs.
I don't know how the scene was in LA, because I was New York, and there was a whole circuit, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, like you could work weekends, but in LA, there were just the couple of clubs in LA, right? I mean, were there places to go to work?
There was San Francisco. We went to San Francisco. At least I did. I worked in the Bay Area a lot. But again, where I started, 5 years later, it was different, because they had started more
right.
of the franchise clubs. The improv had clubs. I worked the improv circuit, and I didn't do the Comedy Store as much, but I did the Laugh Stops and Giggles and Tee and Ha-Has.
Yeah.
Ha-Has, Burbank, wherever. But yeah.
And so when you were headlining, so now you've got an hour or so of material. I'm assuming you're right. You're writing. You've become a writer now. Yes. Yes,
but not a formally trained, nothing. I learned how to write I can write for Marsha, but writing for other people, I don't know. I don't do that. So mm-hmm. I am a writer because I know what I want to say, and it doesn't come out right when other people try to interpret it for me.
How did Book of Marsha start?
When I came back, and I started doing stand-up again, and I went back to the beginning, how you do it. You go back to the bars, the clubs, you put together 5 minutes, then you expand and try to get more stage time and more stage time. And that's what I did. And as I was coming along, people would want to ask me questions and stuff. And they go, you should write a book. And I'm like, that's about as exciting to me as doing math homework for fun. I just don't understand why I would do that. And then I said, but my stand-up is autobiographical. To an extent. Mm-hmm. And because I have to reintroduce myself to audiences. Most of these people go into clubs now. They didn't come up with Night Court. They don't know. Right. And I was gone so long. So they don't know me. So I had to start all over again and reintroduce myself to new audiences. And that is a fair bit of, this is who I am. Hi, my name's Marsha. And so I said, well, maybe I can do my stand-up act, tell my story that way. We all have stories. We all have more than one story. We have millions of stories. People who know stories can pull hundreds of stories out of you that you didn't even know were there. And so I said, I can do the Book of Marsha as a stand-up show. Then I founded my own religion. And that religion needed a gospel. So the book of Marsha is also the first chapter of the gospel of Jesus.
Jesus, yeah. I love it, yeah.
Because she is the feminine force that created the universe, that emerged from the primordial ooze she created, pregnant with herself, and delivered life throughout the universe. She creates life in her image, male and female makes she them. And so the book of Marsha introduces the Church of Jesus.
And how do men respond to the Church of Jesus?
Women are so busy cheering that nobody cares.
Yeah.
But no, most men, it's cool. It's like the limitations put on women put a lot of pressure on men. Mm-hmm. And some men are resistant to having that pressure released. Mm-hmm. They're not even aware they're under that pressure. Mm-hmm. But somehow when you bring it up and they're like, okay, this is not threatening. What I'm saying is not threatening to you. It's just another way of looking at things. So they're usually pretty cool with it, and I get a lot of guys on my social media, they Jesus, and seem to really get into it.
You were bawdy and sexy and ballsy, and you were saying fuck way before I remember anybody saying fuck on stage and getting away with it, and smoking a cigarette during your act and talking about men's. One of the funniest lines of yours that killed me was something about you're supposed to look into a man's eyes the first thing and tell us what it is.
Yeah, Cosmo and all those magazines say the first thing a woman looks at in a man is his eye. Mm-hmm. I have eyes.
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to that. I was reading your wiki page last night, and I was so moved, Marsha, by your story and the quote about what happened with your mom. And I wanted to talk about that as a mom and someone who has a mom. First, how did your mom feel about you with stand-up? I'm sure success colored that situation, but was she accepting of that when you first started doing it?
Well, I don't know that my mother was ever accepting of me as I am.
I hear you. Yeah.
She had an idea of what she wanted her daughter to be that didn't always mesh with the person her daughter was. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there was a process for us getting to an understanding. Look, this is it, And so as far as stand-up, she was more concerned because, as I said, we have no concept of how you get into show business, of what it takes, of what you have to do. And, the stories we hear are all salacious and, terrifying. And so she was concerned. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the way parents are protective is to tell you can't do stuff. Mm-hmm. You can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. No, you can't. And so you don't understand and that kind of stuff. And so we clashed a bit about it. But like I said, the reason I went to Los Angeles, or the way I got to Los Angeles in the first place, was that I told my mother I was going to hitchhike. I was going to Los Angeles. I was 22 years old. You can't tell me what to do. I'm going to Los Angeles. This is what I want to do for a living. And this is where show business is now. The Tonight Show had moved, and everybody was saying, the word on the street is New York. Now that the Ed Sullivan Show is gone, you got to go to LA. Mm-hmm. And at that time, we're talking this era of the hippie, the free love, that people are hitchhiking across the country and sleeping on the street in San Francisco. This was a thing. And so I'm going. She said, you don't have any money. I don't care. I'm going. I'm on my way. So she said, if you don't go, I'll give you a trip to Los Angeles for your birthday. You can have 2 weeks at the Continental Hyatt House, which was right next door to the Comedy Store.
Wow.
And a round trip ticket. So if you ever need them, back then, round trip tickets didn't, there were no restrictions.
Right.
As long as you had that round trip ticket, you could go home. And so I said, okay. And that was the deal we made. So I went to Los Angeles on my birthday, on my 22nd birthday in 1974. And I had $150 in my pocket and a round trip ticket and 2 weeks at the Continental Hyatt House. And first thing I did was sell that ticket and got a job at an answering service in Beverly Hills.
Okay. And so after 2 weeks, what were you hearing from back home? How was mom responding to that?
What are you doing now? And I told her I had taken out a room at Howard's Weekly, $39 a week.
Oh my God.
On Ivar in Hollywood. And that's what I did. And I was always pretty headstrong, I guess. And I say to people who say, well, how did you do that? What made you do that? I was too stupid to be scared. I was too young, too stupid to be scared. It wasn't that I was full of bravado or anything. I'm just going to Los Angeles to do stand-up comedy. What could possibly go wrong?
And because you had a switchboard job, you never ran out of money. You were never hungry. You always had a room to.
That didn't last long.
So what did you do?
Well, I started trying to work, and we did the unemployment thing, and we did whatever we could, and for sometimes we just starved. I would walk from wherever I was staying to the Comedy Store, like miles there and back. I'd be walking home from the Comedy Store through Hollywood on Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood and Vine and stuff like that. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, going home. That's what I did.
Wow. Okay, so you were married before this, right? You were married when you were in Chicago, young girl, like 18, you got married?
Yes, I got married when I was 18. We separated when I was 19, got divorced when I was 20, found stand-up, left the city, left the state.
And so was there ever a time, okay, so how did you get Night Court? Because that had to be a life changer.
I was doing stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
I was on my way to Seattle to do a gig, and my agent called and said, they want to talk to you at Night Court. The bailiff died. I said, she died last year. They said, she died too. I went, are you kidding me? They said, no. And they're about to go into production. It was like 3 weeks before they went into production for the 4th season. And so they want to talk to you. They don't know what they're going to do with the role. They're not sure. They just want to get through the first show. And they want to just go in and meet with the producers and whatever. And I'm like, I'm not dressed. Just go. So I had on a sweatsuit. I had a pack of cigarettes in my hand and a wallet. And I go in and I meet Briney, the producer. And he says, hi, how you doing? And he had a real fireplace going and the air conditioner on. And he said, can I have one of those cigarettes? I said, sure. He said, light up. I said, really? Yeah. So we started smoking and he said, so where are you from? I said, I'm from Chicago. He said, me too. So we had this conversation about whatever, shooting the breeze. And he said, okay, so we're doing the show. I don't know what I want to do yet. I'm looking at people and I'm trying to decide what are we going to do for the season, but we know, we'll let you know where we go, And it's nice meeting you. So thank you, bye. Left, called my agent, said, it went all right. I don't think I got it. He didn't say anything about it. So I'm off to Seattle, bye-bye.
And you didn't read or anything?
No.
No.
I got on the plane. When I got off the plane, they picked me up and said, call your agent. Okay. I said, you got it. I said, got what? You got night court. Got what? They don't have a role. They said, well, whatever it is, you got to call your agent. So I called my agent and they booked me for the first show. They did not book me for the second show. I got hired for the series or starting on the third show of the fourth season. Wow. That's how I got night court.
And now at this point, I know your mother's not accepting too much of who you are and what you are, but at this point, when now you're on this hit TV series, is she a little bit proud, a little bit happy?
Oh, that was, the whole landscape of LGBTQ, whatever, was so different then. You can't really put it in this kind of time frame mindset. It seems outrageous now that somebody's mother would say, don't tell while I'm alive. It seems outrageous. It wasn't outrageous then.
We didn't talk about this yet, so I don't know if people out there know the deal that you made with your mother. And at what point did you make this?
When I officially came out to her, I must have been somewhere around the same time when I got night court. I was, well, maybe a little younger. Maybe a little.
Marsha, when did you realize you were gay? Because you married a man. Your comedy was very much sexual, and a lot of it was about men.
Right.
When did you really when did you know that you were gay?
I got an inkling when I fell in love, and my boyfriend told me. I said, I don't know why I like her so much and why I can't really talk to her. I don't usually like women like, why do I like her so much? He said, like, bitch, you in love. And I said, oh, hey, I could have had a V8. I mean, it was like a light switch went off and everything in my life.
Really, in that moment, you hadn't.
Everything to that point, I was 23, made sense. Because
there had to be crushes before that, I would imagine.
I didn't know they were crushes.
Right.
I started having crushes at 2. I had a crush on Annette Funicello at 2 and didn't understand why everybody didn't love Annette. Like, I mean, what's wrong with you? Annette, but
I did. Annette.
She was the shit. And so, I mean, I was probably looking at the TV going pretty. And my mother was like, oh, I don't know.
By the way, Jack McGee says, hi, Marsha. I worked with you as Charlie's replacement on Night Court in the early years. Do you know Jack? He's wonderful.
Hi, Jack. How are you?
So around this time in your early 20s, you came out to your mom that early?
I did not come out, but I started bringing women to her house that were friends of mine that, we had to sleep together.
And how did she handle that?
Well, for space, that didn't, girls sleeping together. That's what girls do when you only have one room and, So I didn't come out until a few years later. And she said, I know, which pissed me off. It still pisses me off when people say that. You don't know. And if you did know, why did we have to have this conversation? Why didn't we know? Did we talk about why is it a thing? Don't tell me you know. You didn't know. You don't know shit. If nobody tells you, if I don't tell you, you don't know. And there have been people that I thought were gay. They weren't gay. And I'm sure with everybody else. So you don't know. But anyway, she said she knew. And I'm like, well, you could have told me. Instead of, we wouldn't have had to have these fights back and forth. I don't want to wear this dress. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do the girly thing. I don't want to do that. Well, she wanted me to be the girly girl. I'm 6 feet tall. I don't want to do that. It's stupid. And so we didn't have to have these fights. In my opinion.
She claimed that she always knew.
Yeah.
And what was
she certainly had to have known. Looking back on my life and who I was as a child, it's like The baby's gay. Give me a break. Look at this child.
Well, but you got married and you're doing stand-up about men.
I had to, and that was how I got conditioned and indoctrinated into the heteronormative lifestyle I was expected to. And a lot of things, not just straight, gay, whatever. I did a lot of things because they were expected of me.
Right.
Because that's what women do.
Did you know when you married your husband that that was not really what you wanted to do? No.
Everybody else did, though.
Mm-hmm.
You know, looking back on it, there were people who were against the marriage. I didn't understand, but you know, there was another girl that they wanted him to marry, and again, looking back at it, it was because he's marrying the dyke. Why don't he marry the straight woman? You know, the poor thing. And so no.
He's marrying the dyke. So you made this, your mother, tell us what your mother asked you to do. Because
she said, you know, okay, you know, that's who you are. Just do me a favor and don't tell anybody and don't come out while I'm alive.
And this is years ago.
In the 80s or so, yeah.
And you agreed to that?
It wasn't a big request at that time. At that time, it was pretty much normal, you know.
Right.
I love the sin, hate the sin, or love the sin or hate the sin, whatever mindset. It was like, you know, don't ask, don't tell. It was, you know, it was acceptance within the boundaries and parameters that existed at that time. So I didn't feel unduly burdened by it at the time. As, you know, getting older and looking back, it was unfortunate, but we were in that time. It would be a tragedy now, and it is when it happens, but then, you know, that was about as close to acceptance as, you know, as we got.
So were you able to live a genuine life in spite of not being outward, not speaking of it? Were you able to live your life in a genuine way?
Genuine.
In other words, were you able to love who you wanted to love and share your life with who you wanted to share your life?
Within the boundaries that everybody played in. Everybody played in when you saw another person with their personal assistant on the red carpet. Only there was no need to wink. There was just, oh, hi, how you doing? Blah, blah. That's just the way it was. The only time you got to express yourself was in arenas and clubs and bars for that purpose. And, you know, you didn't necessarily want to be seen going in them. You know, that was the time. Those were the restrictions that people, they're not just in show business, people, you know, you could lose your job if some person saw you going in somewhere. I saw her going into the bar, and oh my goodness, was it true that you've been consorting with, you know? And so that's just the way it was. Unless it was opening up for gay men until the AIDS crisis, and then things got locked down again. You know, go back underground, and the tragedy got downplayed because of that. Because when I first got to LA, the Saturday night in Boys Town, there were millions of people, and it was a big disco party, and things were like, yeah, rah, rah, confetti and all that kind of stuff. 2-3 years later, it was a ghost town.
Right.
They were gone. And it was kind of scary. I mean, it was terrifying, but it was kind of really had an effect on you, you know, the fear, the whole atmosphere that was that hung over the early 80s and that fear of AIDS. And it just put a damper, it shut everything down. The AIDS crisis shut everything down. And it made it shameful again because it had been becoming more acceptable and more accepted. And then you had to go back in the closet. So, you know, it's been a roller coaster and stuff, but that was just the times we were in.
Rock Hudson wasn't Rock Hudson like a big part of that? Because first everybody found out he was gay, then he had AIDS, and it was, I think, shocking to most of America. Both those pieces of information were kind of shocking. Did it ever cost you? I know you weren't out, you were keeping it under wraps, but people knew, you said. Did it ever cost you? Do you think it ever cost you work? Did it ever?
No, I don't know. You know, people in this business, you can lose a gig for, you know, not having your toes painted. I don't know, anything, you know, you can, whatever. And you can get one because you had a cigarette to give the producer when he said, give me one of those cigarettes. I mean, nobody knows what the formula is, or everybody would do it. And no two people have ever made it the same way, ever. So there are no rules. But I don't know that I lost roles because I was gay, but because I didn't fit the, you know, we have tropes in the business, and there's always been the tough chick, the broads, which if you look at all the women who were broads in the movies, they were kind of butch and, you know, they're handsome women, as they used to say. And so, you know, I played a cop thousands of times, you know, so cop, gym teacher, you know, you're going to get those calls. So I don't know that I ever lost anything. I probably got some work because I was abroad.
So Marsha, why, when things were going, you did so much television, why did you take a hiatus and go away for 15, 20 years?
Life has a way of not giving a shit what you're doing. And a lot of things happened in the mid 90s, early 90s. My mother died in 95. And she had been sick a long time. And my aunt, her sister, who was also big in helping raise me, they died within 2 months of each other.
I'm sorry.
And I lost my house in the Northridge quake. And
where did you live?
Woodland Hills. And I had just finished decorating. I mean, I had moved up to this new house in Woodland Hills, Calabasas area, and it was up on a hill, and I had just put the last trinket in place and whatever, and wake up to, and so
wow,
having to move. And then I had the 80s disease, which was, you know, having an effect. And I just didn't know it at the time, but I just had a breakdown. I just broke down. I was in a bad relationship, just broke down. So I went home, and home was in LA. My sister had moved to Vegas. So I went to visit her to get myself together, you know, do a little couch surfing, you know, and ended up staying. You know, she was a single mother with a young son and needed somebody there to help raise him. And I needed a place to stay and 2 weeks turned into 15 years.
Did you miss it?
Yeah.
But you didn't stand up at all. You didn't like go to the
No.
hotels and nothing.
No, I didn't have any money. I ain't have nothing. I had no money. I had no income. I didn't know anybody in Vegas.
Mm.
The industry in Vegas was closed pretty much. And I didn't know anybody. You leave Los Angeles for 3 days and Marsha who? And so nobody knew I was gone. Nobody came looking. Nobody cared. And so I just needed the break, I guess. And it turned into what it did.
What was there any joy in there? Was there self-discovery? Did good come out of it?
I never quit. I never quit in my head. I never quit, and good, bad, those are qualifiers that don't really mean a lot, It happened. Those are the cards I had. That's how I played them. I got new cards this time I'm playing these.
So how did you, okay, so if your mother died in 95, but you waited till 2017, right, to come out. I know you had made that promise to her that you wouldn't while she was alive. What made you change your mind? Why in 2017? Why then?
I was out among people. I hadn't been out among people and all that time. I wasn't going to clubs. I wasn't dating. I wasn't doing much of anything. I was pretty much at home, being a homebody. And so there was nobody to tell. So when I started socializing again and being around people, then it became important. And I got on Facebook. I hadn't been on Facebook. And I got on Facebook and having those conversations on Facebook and people saying things, every once in a while somebody hits on you, somebody whatever. It's just like, you know what, hey, I'm gay. The world didn't end. And so I said it again, and that was that.
Do you remember the first time you said that out loud?
No, I don't know that. I don't know that that's a natural way of me seeing me. I always saw myself as open sexually, just open. And then I realized I was more open with women. I realized I didn't want to have a relationship with a man. It wasn't sexual. I just didn't want to have relationships with men. I wanted to have relationships with women. I like women. And so, then I realized there's a name for that. But it wasn't something I really agonized over or anything. It was these revelations that were liberating. They were, well, duh. And then I'd get mad at, well, why did they put all these restrictions in here in the first place? It's what made me study religion. I wanted to know why it's a moral thing. Where does the Bible say? What does the Bible? So I read the Bible. And at the end of it, I went, these people are making crap up. And I was liberated from that. And so I, could embrace something that had always been, but never acknowledged.
You have a really important story to tell. I'm glad you're doing Book of Marsha because you have a really important. So just Book of Marsha changes, right? It's not.
Yes. No, it's not static. It's. Yes, I have an act, but I like to keep things fluid and moist, and so.
Yeah. And so Netflix is a joke. I hadn't heard of that until I just saw it on your page. I'm excited about that. So that's May 6th, you're going to be performing and you'll be doing Book of Marsha. What is Netflix as a joke?
That's Netflix Comedy Channel. And they're doing a big festival where they have, like, if you go to Netflix as a joke and look up the listings and the event listings, there are hundreds of shows with hundreds of comedians all over Los Angeles. And one of them is a big LGBT stand-up special with like 30 different LGBT comedians. And it's at the Greek on the 7th.
The 6th.
I'm at the
you're not at the Greek. I see.
I'm at the Regency West.
Right. Okay.
So I get to do both, and that's pretty exciting. One's the whole show, one's 5-minute set, but it's still to be around. Wanda's producing it. Wanda Sykes.
Fantastic. And so, how did you go from not doing it? How did you segue back? How did you start doing it? Did you do little 5 minutes? Did you write a whole new act? How did you do it? How did you get back in there? That's a long time to be gone.
Yeah, I started over again like a rookie. I didn't do any of I couldn't even remember. The people tell me lines I used to do, and I'm like, oh, I did that. That's pretty damn funny. But I don't even, so I started over like I had never done it before. And I went back to bars and clubs and, open mics and all that kind of stuff, and started all over again. And sometimes I'd get to do 20 minutes or so, or I'd just riff and see if I could hold a stage that long. But the writing material took to now to get me to where I feel comfortable about presenting an hour-long show.
Did you find that there was a certain, we are of the same age. Did you find that when you went in front of audiences that there was an acceptance right off the bat because they knew you, they remembered you? Or was that not part of the deal?
Nah, they don't know me. The comedians know me, but the audience, they don't care. And, it's always a process, even if they know you, even if they know who Roz is, they don't know who Marsha is. And those images don't mesh. Red Fox is famous for, people coming to the club expecting to see Fred Sanford, and they see Red Fox and they're like, well, this is not the same guy. No, you got to wash your ass. Fred Sanford ain't gonna tell you to wash your ass. And if you can't fuck it, suck it. Now, he's not gonna say that. And so you always have to introduce yourself. You reintroduce yourself a million times, and many people reinvent themselves over and over again. Beyonce reinvents herself every show. Rihanna, Madonna, they've always, if they come out and it's the same Madonna from the last tour, you're like
disappointed. Yeah.
No, you want to see Cher, Janet Jackson. You want to see these people reinventing themselves all the time. And so there's room to do that when you define what the show is, how it's going to be. It's what you say it is. The joke is what you say. The show is how you say it goes. So, I haven't had too much of a problem connecting with audiences. Sometimes they're resentful, sometimes, but it's usually not gay, and it's usually not old, and it's not the women, it's the race that people have.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do a series on, and it's not a regular series, but a recurring series on TikTok would say, white people, we need to talk. That phrase there gets me so much hate. I had somebody say, how would you said, you're calling us white people is the same as me calling you the N-word.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, you calling out white people, you're racist, you're this. I get called racist all the time. Uh,
Wow.
it's America's third rail, and it's foundational. It's a foundational third rail,
Mhm.
and you have to confront it. The people, we've created a society that punish people for confronting that issue, that sanction people's lives for confronting that issue. But we have to find a way to. They're going so far to keep us from confronting the issue. They're passing laws that say you can't teach the history.
Right.
That's how much we not want to acknowledge our foundational third rail. And
Mhm.
so I feel compelled to find
Good.
a way to address these things and get the laughs, but no compromise, no,
Well, you've always been fearless. Your comedy's always been fearless. Marsha, what were you doing when the pandemic started? You'd already started working, you were already back.
Mhm.
How did that impact your life? What did you do when COVID hit?
I was in March of 2020, my boo baby took me to Hawaii.
Oh,
And we went to Hawaii, and there were grumblings about the pandemic overseas, and that it might be coming here, and but no mandates, no nothing, no restrictions. So we get on the plane, and there are a lot of people with masks on, and there's a lot of this is kind of weird. When we get to Hawaii, we went to Kauai, and there's a ship that didn't move. It had been grounded there, and there were little things happening, but it wasn't really, a big deal.
mhm.
We weren't restricted in any way, and we were, like I said, on Kauai off season. It was very pleasant, and
Mhm.
just walking around and seeing the town. I had never been to Hawaii. We get on the plane, more masks. Get back, and they're like, well, we might have to close down. We might have to do this. I was working at the LA Comedy Club at the Stratosphere, and 2 nights a week. And they were saying, well, we don't know what's going on, but if you feel like, you're not comfortable coming, we understand if you don't want to do it. And I said, well, I'll let you know. And the news got more and more concerning. And I said, you
Mhm.
know what? Why don't we just take a little break? Well, that ended up being the last time I worked there. And then everything shut down. And so back to doing what I'd always doing,
Stay at
staying
home.
home.
But was it frustrating or was it comfortable? What did you do? Did you do any? I didn't do anything. Well, I did live shows all the time, but I didn't clean a closet. I didn't throw out any paper. Did you do anything during that time?
I did the same writing. I spent a lot of time on social media, a lot of time just trying to, stay aware and involved,
Mhm.
but no real stand up until things started opening up a bit. And I started going out and doing a couple of things here and there. And then got a call to do 911. And, the opportunities that came up, I took advantage of. And as things have opened up more, I did more clubs. I had been working with George Wallace
Mhm.
for a while before the pandemic. And then, things would come up, events and stuff, and we'd do those and try to be careful. But I didn't really shut down. It didn't make sense to go out, so I didn't. And I didn't do anything until it made sense. And then when the vaccine came, I was right there.
Mhm.
And, I'm quadruple vaxxed. So, uh,
As a
I feel,
Did you stay COVID free?
yeah.
Because
So
Vegas was bad.
well, for a while, the strip was empty. They did close
Yeah.
Vegas for a hot minute. I mean, it was eerily silent. And I didn't come right back when everybody else did. But after a while, yeah, I just, tried to keep my feet in the water, my toes in the water.
So May 29th through 1st, you'll be at the Comedy Cellar, not in New York, in Las Vegas. April, I'm sorry. You'll be at the Comedy Cellar in Las Vegas.
Yes.
You'll be doing Netflix is a Joke, the book of Marsha on May 6th. What if you had your druthers, if you could have a dream come true, what would you like to see happen for you moving forward? Do you have a vision of that, or are you a one day at a time person?
I'm kind of both. I could. I'm open to suggestion, but one of the things I want to do is visit every African American history museum in the country.
Wow.
I want to visit everyone. I want to take people with me because I think they're fascinating. I've been going to them for years, and I don't think they get enough recognition. They have their great capsules, time capsules, and they capture a history we don't often get to experience. So that's one of the things I want to do.
That sounds like a Netflix show, by the way. It really does.
And I want to do the Book of Marsha. I want to take that show around. It's my own self-contained one-woman stand-up special live. And I'd love to take it around the country as I'm visiting Black museums.
There you
go. Whatever else comes, I'm happy for.
I know it's math homework to you, but I really do. I have a literary salon. I'm a writer. I really hope you write it down, because I think it's getting archived because we have video and everything, and people will see it and be able to watch it throughout time. But there's something about holding that book in your hand. And there are a lot of women that can really, it's important. Your story is very important. I'm moved. Personally, it moved me for reasons we talked about before the show. And I hope you keep telling your story, however you choose to tell it.
Well, thank you.
It's very inspiring to me. You are very inspiring. I love your comedy. I love your stand-up. I love your body. I love your fearlessness. And I look forward to seeing you live I haven't done the clubs yet. I'm COVID crazy and still scared, and I'm 4 times shot and all that.
I understand. I'm not one of those people. We're talking about a deadly disease you can't see. So take care of yourself.
But I thank you so much for doing this, and I've so enjoyed spending this time with you. And thank you for being you. I dig the Marsha Warfield.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I've had a ball.
Thank you so much, Marsha.